What's the single worst decision that's ever been made in the course of human history? The formation of the Confederacy. Say that they didn't want to end slavery, but because Southerners were so crazy about slavery and slave culture, they decided to commit treason rather than have a president who supported abolition. Then they decided to fight a war to preserve their country, even though the Union had more soldiers, arms, infrastructure, and basically everything else. Still, they chose to fight a war to preserve one of the most grossly inhuman atrocities known to man. The invention and proliferation of leaded petrol by petrol conglomerates in the early 1900s. Estimates say it's killed over 100 million people directly or indirectly, and some estimates are far higher. Raised crime worldwide for 50 years. Lowered IQs worldwide, and poison the entire planet. Half the US population is said to still have high lead levels in their body today, and it still kills 1 to 5 million people a year. Or up to 10% of all deaths globally can be traced to lead. Fucking crazy when I learned about it. Can't decide between two. If Tsar Nicholas had sided with the peasants of the Dumas instead of the nobles, there may not have been a Russian Revolution and therefore no Stalin and possibly no Cold War. If the German Reichstag decided to reject Hitler because they wouldn't be able to keep him under control, there wouldn't have been WW2. Deciding to use the time machine. The ironic thing is that all intelligent life everywhere and in every time, both before and after that moment, knew it was disaster. The only moment in all of the history of the universe that doesn't know it is the exact moment it was used. To be fair though, the odds of that being the case are 100. Islam, the Arab world, used to be the intellectual center of the world. They collected knowledge and copied book from any passing ships. They are the reason we have words like algebra and Arabic numerals. Then they adopted Islam, which told them manipulation of numbers was the work of the devil, and they haven't recovered since. Marx developing communist theory. The rise of communism led to the rise of fascism, both of which ended up being responsible for the deaths of perhaps as many as 100 million people, directly or indirectly, and the oppression of billions. Many of the current problems we face today are still repercussions of Marx. The birthing of Thomas Midgley Jr. He was responsible for the development of CFCs and leaded petrol, and because of this, is often cited as having the largest negative impact on the climate in the history of modern civilization. He also managed to strangle himself to death with his own invention. Trusting the East India Company. We were colonized for 300 years. Freedom in 1948. Country split into two and is still warring with each other. Our own country people treated less than humans. Spices stolen. Wealth stolen. Abundance depleted. Thank you. Kingdom in which the sun never sets. The Great Leap Forward. Mao's economic and social policies in 1960s China led to the largest famine in human history, leading to the death of 30 million people. If you look at a graph of annual world population growth rate from 1900s until today, there is a large dip at 1960 due to this. The Xhosa people listening to their prophet, a teenage girl who told them to kill all of their cattle, and that the spirits would provide for them. 75% of their population starved to death. They blamed the few who didn't kill their cattle for the spirits not providing for them. Abandoned nuclear energy fission plants. It was the last and only chance to save the planet. All other solutions will not provide a significant impact before the climate tipping point. A minority of people who call themselves ecologists are the cause of the end of human race. Some might say it was Eve eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. However, if I may, could it be Adam's choice to not call out to GD? Or would it be possible not taking responsibility for her actions being the head of the garden? The decision to strip Imperial Germany of her colonies, motivated entirely by French and British greed. Had she been allowed to keep her colonies, there is a more than 90% chance Hitler would have emigrated and WW2 never would have happened. Mao Zedong ordered Chinese peasants to kill sparrows because he believed they crop, thus hurting grain production of China. Without sparrows, nothing kept the smaller bugs and insects in check, and they ate all the crops. Famine ensued. Batista deciding to jail Fidel Castro instead of executing him. Who knows how Batista's nasty regime would have ended? But almost certainly the Cuban people would be better off today if Castro had never come to power. I forgot his name and most of the story, but the guy who threw the doctor who suggested washing their hands before surgery in a psych ward probably set back the medical world a couple decades, invading a 40 meters country with 275k troops, because the advisors who you left alive told you that it's going to be a breeze, because you will be viewed as a liberator. The whole world is paying. Up there has to be the lack of decision to fine petroleum companies trillions of dollars for deliberately obfuscating the climate change debate and causing untold damage, including many deaths, allowing lobbyists from property developers, pharmaceutical companies, legal arms dealers, and a raft of other unethical companies influence government and individual politicians with money. The Treaty of Versailles. The Allies imposed some pretty harsh terms on Germany after World War I. This basically led to the rise of fascism, the Nazis, and eventually the Holocaust. Slavery, every time it's happened, and the fact that it's still happening, traumatizes and sets back generations of people and the potential impact they could have had on the world. That time a woman screwed over all of humanity by eating an apple proffered by a snake, thus dooming everyone to scary lava unless a nice guy got nailed to some timbers by sadists. Creating plastic. We are making ourselves infertile over time with endocrine disrupting plastics. We are probably going to kill ourselves off as a species because of it. ExxonMobil deciding to completely ignore their internally conducted research in the 1970s that near perfectly predicted the climate crisis because money. The war on drugs has probably destroyed more lives than is even conceivable. It's international and potentially more costly than the world wars. The story so far. In the beginning the universe was created. This has made a lot of people very angry and been widely regarded as a bad move. Either the United States founding fathers creating a two-party system or them choosing not to enact gun control when the US had less guns. Brexit has to be near the top of the list. Republicans choosing Putin and cutting off aid to Ukraine has got to be right up there. When Gavrilo Princip murdered Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie, it effectively caused the First World War from 1914-1921. In the beginning the universe was created. This has made a lot of people very angry and been widely regarded as a bad move. The universe being created. This has made a lot of people very angry and been widely regarded as a bad decision. Yes, I believe you, Mary. And the angel did give you this baby. It's just a cover-up for an affair that went way too far. Johann Kuberger saving 4-year-old Adolf Hitler from drowning. Thanks, Johann. You're a real hero, bastard. When they didn't strangle the first priest with the entrails of the first king. Or however the saying goes, my ex choosing work over me. She hates my wife solely for the fact that she stole the one who got away. Among his many bad decisions, Hitler deciding to invade the Soviet Union was a very not smart move. Jill Biden trotting out Joe Biden to run for a second term. She should be charged with elder abuse. In 200 years, the universal answer to this will be allowing Muslims to emigrate to our country. Letting Marx print his book, world would have been so much better without it. Leaving that cave all those years ago. That was a nice place, been downhill ever since. Teddy Roosevelt running on the Bull Moose ticket which resulted in Wilson's presidency. The Industrial Revolution and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race. The first person that made up the first God really fucked over a bunch of people. Invading Russia in the winter. Or expecting the invasion to be over by winter. Hey, look at this extremely tiny thing we realized exists. Let's split it up. Lying about WND destabilized whole region for decades and it's still not over. The scramble for Africa and allowing King Leopold II to gain the Congo. I think electing Trump could possibly become the worst decision ever. Ned Stark telling Cersei of his knowledge of Joffrey's real dad. Lol. When we left the primordial froth, we really had it made back then. The decision a British soldier made to not shoot Adolf Hitler. Agriculture. Humans were probably happier as hunter-gatherers. If Trump gets elected in November, that will go on this list. Mrs. Hitler giving Mr. Hitler the thumbs up in August. 1888. Cohn in against a Sicilian when death was on the line. China has far more men than women now because of misogyny. Gavrilo Princip's decision to assassinate the Archduke. Blockbuster turning down the chance to acquire Netflix. Yeah. I bet lots of people jerk off the tentacles. Not buying a painting from Hitler has to be up there. Nikki. What the frick was I thinking? Toller.